So today we're going to dive into one of the most powerful frameworks in the world of communication, a system that is designed to bring just absolute clarity to everything you write. We are talking about the Minto pyramid principle, and it comes from the legend herself, Barbara Minto. But let's start with the question I know you've asked yourself. Why is so much of the writing we have to read every day, the emails, the reports, the presentations, why is it so incredibly hard to get through? You know that feeling, right? You're a few paragraphs in, and your brain just feels like it's wading through mud. And you'd think the fix is to, write more elegantly, maybe find fancier words. But what Barbara Minto figured out is that we're all focusing on the wrong thing. The secret to being powerful and persuasive and clear, it's not about the sentences themselves. It's about the underlying structure, the order you present your ideas in. Okay, first up, the struggle for clarity. And what's so cool about this is how Minto uses her own method to explain the very problem we all face. Okay, check this out. This is the whole challenge, framed in what Minto calls the situation complication question framework. The situation is simple, it's a fact we all agree on. We have to write to share our thinking. The complication, well, our ideas don't just show up perfectly organized. They come out as a jumbled mess, a stream of consciousness, which leads to the big question. How on earth do we bring some kind of order to all that mental chaos? And right on cue, here is Minto's elegant answer. The pyramid principle isn't some trick you apply at the end. No, it's a thinking discipline you use from the very beginning. It's a method that forces you, it makes you organize and test your own logic before you ever type a single word. And the key takeaway here is super simple but incredibly powerful. Think first, then write. All right, section 2, thinking in a pyramid. So what does this actually look like? Let's take a look at the architecture.
The structure is actually super simple and really intuitive. At the very top of the pyramid, you've got one single idea. That's your main point. Holding that up is what Minto calls the key line, just a few core arguments. And then, under each of those, you start layering in the supporting details, the evidence, the data. It's this perfect top-down hierarchy.
But why a pyramid? Why that shape? Well, it's not random at all. It's actually based on how our brains are wired. See, a psychologist named George Miller discovered this thing called the magical number 7, plus or minus 2. Basically, it means our minds can only really hold about 7 distinct ideas at a time. So if you try to throw 12 scattered points at someone, their brain just checks out. The pyramid respects this limit. It groups ideas into logical chunks, which makes the information way easier for our brains to process. And this leads us to a really, really important distinction. As the writer, your process is naturally bottom-up. You start with all the messy details, you group them together, find patterns, and eventually you figure out your main idea at the top. But your reader, they need the exact opposite. For them to get it, you have to present it top-down. Give them the answer first. Basically, you do all the hard work of climbing up the pyramid so your reader can just effortlessly slide down. Okay, section 3, the rules of the pyramid. Because a true Minto pyramid isn't just a stack of ideas. It's held together by this really tight internal logic, and it's built on 3 golden rules. These are the non-negotiables that make the whole thing logically airtight. First, any idea on the pyramid has to be a direct summary of the group of ideas right underneath it. Second, every idea in a single group has to be the same kind of idea. You can't mix a reason with a step-by-step process. They have to be all reasons or all problems or all steps. And third, those ideas have to be in some kind of logical order, maybe by time or by importance. You get these 3 right, and your argument becomes pretty much unbreakable. Now, when you follow these rules, something really cool happens. The vertical flow going up and down becomes this natural question and answer dialogue. You make a statement, and that automatically raises a question in the reader's mind, like why or how. The level below immediately has to answer that question. It just pulls your reader along. And at the same time, the horizontal flow going side to side makes sure all the ideas on the same level work together as a single logical argument. All right, section 4, putting it into practice. That's enough theory. Let's see how the pyramid can totally transform a confusing everyday business message. So here's the before, and this is a classic, right? A total stream of consciousness. You're getting all these separate details, but you have no idea what the main point is. The writer is basically making you, the reader, do all the hard work of connecting the dots. It's just inefficient and honestly kind of tiring to read. Now, look at the after. It's just a perfect little pyramid in action. It starts with the one big idea right at the top. Could we reschedule to Thursday at 11 a.m.? Then, boom, it immediately gives you the supporting arguments. It works for everybody, and it's the only time the room is free. All the same info is there, but now it's organized for instant clarity. I mean, the difference is night and day. So how do you actually introduce that top point? You use the SQA framework. You start with the situation. That's the common ground, the thing you and your reader both already know. Then you introduce the complication, the event that changes things. This change naturally brings up a question, and the answer to that question is the main point at the top of your pyramid. It's like a tiny story that hooks the reader and perfectly sets the stage for your big idea. All right, section 5, the power of the principle. So you might be thinking, this sounds like a lot of upfront work, and it is. But the payoff isn't just a better document. It's a total change to how you work and the impact you have. I mean, the results really do speak for themselves. When you structure your thinking first, you pretty much eliminate all those painful rewrites. You cut down your drafting time like crazy, your documents get clearer, they get shorter, and they get way more persuasive. You don't just become a better writer, you become a faster and much more effective communicator. You know, this quote from Barbara Minto herself just says it all. The real work isn't in crafting the perfect sentence. It happens way before that, in the thinking and the structuring. The writing part just becomes the easy bit at the end. You're basically just transcribing your already clear logic. And that right there is the whole point. This is so much more than a writing template. It's a rigorous discipline for how you think. It forces you to actually understand your own message, to pressure test your logic, and to get things straight in your own mind before you even try to explain them to someone else. So I'll just leave you with this thought. We're always told that to be a better writer, we just need to write more, right? Practice, practice, practice. But what if that's only half the story? What if the real secret to becoming a powerfully persuasive communicator isn't about writing more, but about learning to think better? To think with more structure, more logic, and more clarity. That is the revolutionary promise of the Minto Pyramid Principle.